Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. Just to get things going, we have two kind of presentations for the price of one today. So we're going to start with the project that was undertaken at Chicago State University. My name is Professor Joanna Colendo, and I'm one of 3 librarians here from Chicago State University that were part of this project. In our case, it didn't take a village, it took a university. So, our library, different departments. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our experience with a personal experience working with Kanopy and how our project progressed. Again, I'm Professor Joanna Colendo. On my right is Professor Azungwe Quimby. She's the acquisitions librarian, so she had a lot to do with the acquisition process. I'm the e-resources librarian in addition to the instruction and reference librarian, so I deal a lot with the different technical aspects of the setup process. And then finally, to my further right is Professor Charlene Snelling, who's the head of reference, and then she's the liaison for a number of different large colleges, like the College of Health Sciences, College of Education, and College of Pharmacy. So we're all kind of in different areas, and we all were involved in this project. So that's what we're going to tell you about, is the project and how it went. So into the stream, basically just a quick overview. Gwendolyn Brooks Library's decision to trial and then acquire Kanopy was entirely patron-demand-driven. The decision was propelled by our faculty interests. So basically, there were a number of reasons that we acquired it, but really the thing that was so unusual for us was that we were having faculty come in and actually say, we want this product. And that, we believe, has a lot to do with the fact that vendors now are reaching out directly to faculty as opposed to the librarians, right? Before, we were like the go-to, but now a lot of vendors are directly approaching the faculty. So that's one of the reasons we decided to, we ended up going with Kanopy as a project. So some things about Kanopy, just a quick overview of why we kind of decided to go with it as opposed to anything else in our really small budgets. So it offers over 26,000 titles including PBS, Criterion Collection, HBO documentaries, and a lot more classics. For us, this was important because we really didn't have a humanities type of media streaming service. We had the Alexander Street Press, the education collections, criminology, and so forth, but we really didn't have something that was meeting the humanities. So that's who came to us, where a lot of them were humanities and social science people. So that's one of the reasons we decided to go with this specific title. Another thing that was very important to us, we didn't want to limit our students. We wanted to make sure that all of them could get on at one time. Now I believe that's almost the norm for most librarians. We kind of expect that, and if they say, well, no, we can't do it, we kind of back off a little bit. At least I know that I, as an e-resources librarian, kind of have to think about that. It also supports embedding, clip creation, other types of things, but for us, another important one was group showing rights. We want these things to be shown in the classroom environment. We just don't want it to be on a personal screen, though that's occurring, but we want the faculty who requested this resource to actually be able to show it in their classroom, right? And then us not have to then pay another fee. That was important as well. And then for me, on the e-resources aspect of it, IP proxy authentication was very important, simply because dealing with one more login, one more password, right? It's kind of problematic. And then it integrates with catalogs, again, something that we already kind of expect from our vendors. If it doesn't, it makes us think twice. Mark records. So a little bit more about Kanopy. So it has a number of different pricing models. There's the a la carte, which allows for ordering of just individual films or collections. There's no platform fee or database fee. And then there's specific pricing for contract. The one thing to understand that wish I kind of understood a little bit more when we started was that there is a termination limit on the licensing. So like there's a 1-year contract that's $150 a year for the year. There's a 3-year, 5 and 10 and so forth. So you do need to bring that up when you're talking about licensing. So we got it was a trial for us. We completely were just trying it out. So we did the 1-year contract. And then the model we actually ended up going with, which is what Kanopy suggested. So, you know, everybody suggests. But we were like, okay, let's do this. Let's take them at their word. And their most popular model was the patron-driven acquisition model, which is basically paying for what is used. You get the whole collection, but you actually only pay if things are being used. So the one little thing is, it basically is triggered. There's a threshold. The title has to be played 4 or more separate times for at least 30 seconds during a year. That I think they could be a little bit more forgiving with, and I have told the vendor that at the vendor exhibits. All low-use films are essentially free because they don't get triggered, right? So if they haven't been used at least 4 times for 30 seconds, that one person can view it without us having to pay. And according to Kanopy, and I wanted to see how true this was, the expectation that we were told is that for every 20 plus films watched, we actually just trigger 1 film. So we pay for 1 film. So did that happen? Well, we'll find out. Once the funds were expended, patrons we also like this, there is a form that appears so they can no longer view things because we no longer have money available. But what happens is there's an actual form that comes, and I get the form, or whoever you elect to get it, that gets the recommendations. And people actually have submitted recommendations saying, oh, you should purchase this. This is a really good film. Just a little bit about CSU, Chicago State University. We are a small, we do have a small student population. We are dealing with enrollment issues. We have 3,000 students, and then we have about 300 faculty and staff. And that's important because obviously one of the concerns of Kanopy is I'm gonna get it, it's gonna be gone in a day. Right? Everybody's going to be using this thing. So we were a little bit smaller, so we were able to do that. So I'm going to pass this on. The next couple slides have to deal with acquisitions. So my colleague, Professor Quemby, is going to be speaking next.
Okay, so I'm just going to be talking about the initial contact with the Kanopy representative, the budget, Chicago State University procurement requirements. Also be talking about the system that we use to acquire our product, which is SideQuest. I don't know how many of you uses this system, but in our school we call it CSU Buy. And then I'm going to be talking about how to work with a new vendor that we have never done business with before. Okay, the initial, there's no notes. Okay. The initial contact with the vendor, usually most of the librarians, most of them the reference librarians, they get in contact with the vendors because the faculty are coming to them with their needs, and once they decide that, okay, this is what we need, then that is when they contact me. In this case, Professor Colindo contacted me that faculty, so many faculties are coming to her requesting this resource, and that is when I asked for the representative information and contacted him. But before I contacted him, I looked into the budget because it was in the middle of the fiscal year, and we have already distributed our budget and it was used up. And then after talking with the representative, I found out that they didn't have a minimum or a maximum amount that you could use. So I said, okay, since we don't have the money right now and it's a trial, we could only use 2,000, and that is what we started with. the procurement process, before we could do business with any vendor, we have to have them registered in our system. And there is a long form with so many requirement that we need the vendor to fill out. Sometimes they say, what is this for? Because it asks about all their financial dealings and all of that. But the most important thing we need is their social security number for the business and their address and where we could mail the check. And once they return that form to me, I submit it to our purchasing office, and they input them in our system, which is a cloud-based system that interacts with the banner, which is the system that the entire university uses. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the banner system. Good. So you know how it works. So this CSU buy interacts with banner because that is where all our budgeting is done. The procurement system, after we have come to a conclusion that we're buying these, then I request for them to send me a quote. And if the amount is more than $5,000, then we give them our contract. But if it is less than $5,000, then we don't have to submit a contract. I can just submit requisitions for it. But even if it is $50 and a vendor gives us their own contract, we are required to give them our CSU contract as well. So when I was sure that, okay, we're going to purchase these, I requested a quote for $2,000, and then I submitted the requisitions. Okay, I'm done with the contract, the requisition process. Okay, I submit the requisition process. Once that the first buyer, we go through it and make sure that I have everything and the date and everything is correct. Then she will move it on to the next buyer, and they will review it. Our legal office reviewing all of this to make sure that I'm not just getting things from people that I know and things like that. So after the revision is all gone, then the purchase order is created. And once that is created, the notice is sent to the vendor, and then the vendor will send an invoice. And in this case, this was a straightforward thing because there were no contracts, so it was easy. Once we received the invoice, payment was made.
So I'm back. Just really quickly, at this point, in the beginning, I was involved as a subject liaison, as the humanities liaison, and then I got involved again during the technical implementation as an e-resources librarian. So basically, during the trial, there were two things we did. We set up authentication. At that point, we only did a login, so we had a login information. We didn't do anything more advanced, and then we put it under trials on our website. So we just kind of wanted to try it, but we did let the faculty know and students know that yes, we did have this, but this was only a trial. So, try it out, see what you think. Okay, and then, so during the trial, like I said, we did IP authentication and then login credentials. And that, again, is kind of important that I stressed it twice because I hate doing login credentials. But anyways, during PDA, during the actual PDA program, when we decided, yes, we are going with this, this is gonna happen, authentication was then changed to Easy Proxy in September of 2018. Basically, for those that don't know, it just basically includes, I had to input a stanza into the Easy Proxy config file. So basically, it makes it work. It's magic, right? And then, for all those that have Open Athens, we're changing to Open Athens. Just found out today that our consortia, Carly, is going to be subsidizing us, so awesome. So Open Athens for almost 91 libraries in Illinois. Okay, so yeah, so that's happening. And then some quick numbers. So basically from October 2017 to October 2019, where we basically had it as a trial and used it, these are the top 10 resources. The language Ukrainian was actually initiated by faculty, so they brought students in to view it, and then some other ones like I Am Not Your Negro and Ida B. Wells, is going to be discussed by my colleague Charlene Snelling, because they were actually really promoted, so that's why you see those higher up. But then there's also things on there that we didn't promote, so top 10 titles, you know, they're finding it. And then I'm just pointing this out because this is what their analytics look like. So I directly cut what the analytics look like on there. And the reason I picked this one is we were actually shocked that they figured out how to do it on their television. So people are viewing them on their, maybe it's just their smart TVs, but it's just not being used on the computers. And it's being used on mobile devices as well. But the television, I must admit, I was a little surprised. So yeah, it's being used. So by the numbers, so again, the question was it worthwhile? What are the numbers telling us? They claimed 20 films viewed for everyone triggered. So what were basically our numbers? So visits, they have some unique terms for their e-resources. So visits is, you know, a visitor session, pretty standard stuff, over close to almost 2,000 pages. Pages refers to the number of video pages browsed. So as they look for the videos, so over 2,000. Plays was what was important for us. So how many videos were actually played? 619, we found out. And then minutes, over 14,000. And then for the PDA performance, so out of 619 videos played, basically we had 23 triggered. So not bad, right? Not bad at all. So for us, at least, it kind of worked. And then in terms of, I said the films, some of the films that were on there were because of promotion. So my colleague Charlene Snelling is going to finish up with our presentation by just talking about what we kind of did.
We face a lot of the same problems of invisibility on campus. We have a lot of resources available to our faculty and students, but the most often phrase we hear is, "I didn't know that." So we decided that this new tool where we had faculty support, it should be promoted to the rest of the campus. And so normally with any new products, we do try to send memos out to the whole community, faculty, student, and staff, and then they say, "I didn't see that." We put it on the library page and they go, "We didn't see that." So what we came up with was that we would partner with other entities on campus, the Women's Resource Center, the Male Resource Center, whoever was doing programming. We would look through the list of films and see if we could suggest films that might augment their programs. That sort of worked and sort of didn't work, but it did make people more aware that we had films. So the first, backwards. Well, okay. So the first time that we tried this, we chose 2 films for African American History Month, and we tried to offer the films at different times. We're a commuter campus, and so at any one time, even though there are 3,000 FTE, at any one time, the number of students who are available to attend things is limited. So we offered the films in the afternoon. We offered them at noon. We offered them in the early evening. And attendance was, because the African American Month program, that actually coincided with some other events, that was fairly well attended. However, for Women's History Month, we decided to try a different ploy and to do our own programming. And what we did was the film that we chose was Ida B. Wells' A Passion for Justice, because we have a big criminal justice program. Our campus is predominantly female and predominantly black. So what we did was, in Chicago, they've just named a street after Ida B. Wells, so that was in the news. And we contacted one of Ida B. Wells' descendants, who's a faculty member, not on our campus, but in Chicago. So what we did was to promote the film and the opportunity to meet and speak with the descendant of Ida B. Wells. That particular program, I guess, because we offered food, was very well attended, and the residual effects of it were surprising to us because it was open not just to the campus, but the community at large. We had sent it to our marketing department, and they had sent it out. About 6 months after the showing of the film, people were still asking, can we see this film? And all they had to do was bring their own earphones, because we don't provide those, and they could view the film on any campus computer. And that turned out to be a really favorable situation. Now, we're a small faculty as well. What Joanna didn't tell you is that every one of us wears about 5 different hats. And so marketing is something that we decided belonged to all of us, especially the staff. The staff hadn't known that we had any video streaming or otherwise on campus, but with that first thing with Ida B. Wells, they attended on their own time and were excited. So in the fall, we had not actually intended to do anything until this coming spring, but with the passing of Toni Morrison, we did a tribute filming of the movie that we had on her, and that was well attended. Our biggest problem now is not that we have these streaming films, is that we want to get students and faculty to put them into more of the classroom uses. So going forward, we'll do all the things that we said. We're going to get media, social media, that's not me. We're going to embed some of the film clips into the LibGuides that we create, and keep going forward. Now, we had a small plan, and the development of that Ida B. Wells turned much bigger than what we thought we'd go. We show film, and that would be it. But programming was a lot bigger than what anyone had anticipated. I gotta go. So my message for you is simply this. Make a plan, even if it's a small one, and be ready for that plan to change in unexpected ways. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anita Foster. I am the Electronic Resources Officer at the Ohio State University Libraries. And we just heard a lot about a Kanopy pilot at Chicago State, and I'm going to expand a little bit on some pilots that we did at my university. So just a quick snapshot of who we are. The TLDR version is we're big, we do a lot of stuff. There are 3 different library organizations at Ohio State University. I'm part of the largest one, but we also have libraries that support our College of Medicine as well as our College of Law. In 2016, our video collection, if you want to call it that, at Ohio State was kind of limited. There had been investments in Alexander Street Press perpetual collections, as well as a couple small collections on subscription. We also had a long-standing films on demand subscription, and our subject librarians, our collection managers, could purchase DVDs, but we had no true dedicated media collection. Things were shelved conveniently next to each other, but there was really no purpose behind what was being collected. It was very much up to the individual subject areas. And media needs for classrooms are managed outside of the libraries. But also in 2016, there was a lot of change happening at the libraries. So within 2 weeks, there was a new electronic resources officer, myself, and a new director of libraries. Additionally, that year, our collection strategist changed and our head of acquisitions left. So one of the things our new director did was what he called listening tours on campus. He went out, talked to departments, heard from them about things the library was doing well, things they wish they were doing better, gaps in the collection or services. And from those conversations, he identified 3 areas for collection enhancement, 2 of which I'm not talking about today, the research data sets and business resources. But the first one we worked with was streaming media. And these were called strategic focus areas. So for the streaming video focus area, we had kind of one basic goal: expand our streaming video offerings from the libraries. We had some pretty bare criteria for what we were investigating. The resources or the collections needed to be large enough to see some impact, so we weren't really interested in very small collections of a low number of films. We wanted enough films that we could see how our folk were using them. And so it's a very fuzzy number. The collections we would want to investigate were not discipline specific, and we needed to be able to enter into multi-year contracts. So we do a lot of things in 3-year stretches at Ohio State libraries for a variety of reasons, but for these pilots, we did it as a way to identify over a really good amount of time how people were using things. There's a lot of classes that may only happen every spring or every other spring, and if we did a shorter trial, we would miss some of that impact or understanding of how streaming media might be used. We were also using some cash funding, so we needed to be able to pay for all the 3 years at the very beginning of the pilot period, and we also wanted to have MARC records available for batch loading. So in the end, we ended up with 3 platforms for this pilot project. We didn't seek this out, but we actually ended up with 3 collections with 3 different models for acquisition. So this table is the 3 different collections and vendors, the kind of model we worked with, our initial investment for the pilot period, and who we actually worked with to get the things in place. So with DocuSeek 2, we are doing the evidence-based acquisition model. Kanopy, similar plan, the patron-driven acquisitions is Chicago State. And then we also invested in licenses for Swank Digital Campus, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what all these are. So DocuSeek 2 is primarily documentaries, and the evidence-based acquisition plan at the time was, so you had access to their entire collection, which was a growing collection. At the end of each year, the top 40 films you could own for the life of file format, kind of basically perpetual, but you know, some media isn't permanent. So whenever they come out with a new type of film, we'll lose access to the things. But the expectation is many, many, many years before that will happen. We started the pilot with access on the DocuSeek 2 platform. Towards the end of 2016, access also became available on the Alexander Street Press platform. They did have 2 different collections at the time, and we invested in the complete collection, which started at 810 films, and they anticipated it would grow to 1,200 by the end of 2017. Their current projection is, I believe it's at the end of 2020, it'll expand to 1,800 films. So just real brief, we went Kanopy, so we went all in on the PDA. We did no curation of like subject area or collections, whatever was available. To be in the patron-driven acquisition program we went with, and we chose unmediated access. And we used a deposit account, so we put all of our money in, a little bit like playing games at Las Vegas. So we went all in at the beginning with a deposit account. So Swank is feature films primarily. They have films from a lot of the major Hollywood studios, including Lionsgate, Focus Films, and my favorite, Disney. We anticipated that we would be using about 100 licenses a year. And we did 1-year licenses kind of for everything but DocuSeek. So unlike the others where there was kind of an unmediated access, we did go with request just because of the nature of Swank itself. You kind of have to tell them what you want. So we kind of automatically activated anything that was requested by faculty, grad students, or staff for class or research need. We didn't actually ask what they were doing with them. We did ask if they were doing a class, but we assumed that they were doing research if it wasn't for class. If undergraduates filled out the form, we just referred them to the subject librarian for some additional conversations. So we started this in about March, April of 2016. By July 2016, we had the licenses in place, we had paid for things, we had the records and catalogs, everything was up. In August, we talked to our collection managers, let them know what we were doing, what their roles were in this process, and answered any questions they had. So by August, when the students came, we're like, ready, set, go. You know, it's be a starting flag. As soon as they showed up on campus, things would just go flying high, as our peer institutions had experienced. However, we became an anomaly, especially for Kanopy. We're a little bit more like a lazy river ride at an amusement park. Things were getting used, things were being triggered, but nowhere near the same rates as other peer institutions. So in the first 6 months, these are the trigger titles for the 3 different platforms. Here I'm using triggering as kind of a common activity. So Swank triggers our requests, DocuSeek are things we would actually end up becoming our films. We would own at the end, and that's based off of 5 uses. So Kanopy in the first 6 months, just about 40 films out of the full collection, Swank 6 or so. And this held pretty steady throughout the first year. At the end of the first year, Kanopy, we had only triggered about 123 films. We'd only expended about 2/3 of our expected budget for the first year. And the other 2 platforms also were pretty low in terms of kind of triggering activities. And then sometime in year 2, we don't know quite what happened, but all of a sudden, things skyrocketed as we had expected to have happened the year before. So over the 3 years, you can see kind of some patterns. DocuSeek was a little bit of an unexpected dip in the second year, but across all the 3 platforms, the usage, the triggers increased year after year, and here's the numbers for Kanopy. I did separate it out just because Kanopy is such a larger collection to the others. So this is the triggers, but to give you an idea of kind of how use was happening, you'll also see a similar effect. Things were going up and going up rapidly. So this slide actually includes our subscription streaming video as well, and you can see the usage is going up as well. The reason there's a dip in Alexander Street Press is we had a subscription to the Criterion collection there, and it was also available on Kanopy, and it didn't really make sense to keep it beyond that first year. So that's why there's a little bit of dip there. So some of the other factors that were happening during these 3 years, because 3 years is kind of a long time, things will change. We created a centralized fund for media needs. No longer was media coming out of subject funds. So our subject librarians were no longer feeling kind of a little bit of a pressure to participate in streaming media. They could still buy DVDs as they wanted, but the streaming requests were being managed centrally. As we had more experience with our different ways of activating films, I think our librarians got more comfortable referring teaching faculty and other non-library folk, referring them to our user request forms, because those numbers were also increasing. There's changing needs of the curriculum. Once upon a time, Ohio State was a quarter-based system, and they had moved to a semester-based system before I started, so I have been dealing with the after effects, not that there's been many. But class times had changed, so there's no longer enough time to show a whole class during class, or a whole film during class. So a lot of professors have been asking their students to watch the films before they come to class. So where you might have had 1 use if it was a classroom showing, you might have 50 uses because they're being asked to watch it outside of class. And then they talk about the film or the topic of the film in class. All of our collections, the number of films available has grown throughout the 3 years. So there's just more films available for streaming. And there's been a small amount of film moving from platform to platform. For example, we had a request for Get Out, and we had access to it on Swank, and then it became available on Kanopy. So that's happened a few times. DocuSeek, I would suspect, will be a little less likely to have that kind of movement because they're a much more tightly curated kind of collection. But I also don't want you to think that we only did these 3 streaming pilots and we did no other kind of streaming activity during these 3 years. So we did buy some additional video sources during the 3 years. Again, for some reason, we like 3 years because pretty much all of these are 3-year deals. So we invested in Medici TV, Berlin Philharmonic Digital Concert Hall. We had all the Sage research videos. And then we started buying a lot of single titles from independent producers, people who had not yet been contacted or working with any of the more established folks. So we have spent some time educating directors, producers, very small film houses on what it means to license streaming film to academic libraries. It's been fun, trust me. So as the 3 years came, a task force was formed of subject librarians to talk about how these platforms had worked for them. So it had multiple subject areas, including life sciences, humanities, and social sciences. They kind of looked at 3 main factors: usage, straight up numbers; subject coverage, was that meeting the needs of their faculty and the people they worked with? And was it a satisfactory user experience? Did it work well with our classroom management system? What kind of issues were people having that might impact how they felt about how the different platforms worked? So in the end, the task force recommended that we continue all those platforms. And our collection strategist agreed. So we have entered into new deals with all 3 platforms. New deals, kind of newish models. With Swank, we did not use our entire 300 licenses. We were able to roll those over, which is a very nice thing to be able to do. But we did go ahead and add an additional 300 licenses or spots or slots or titles. We can't, in my library, settle on how we want to refer to these. DocuSeek, too, did change their evidence-based acquisitions model. So instead of being the top 40 films in every year, it's now every 3 years. And Kanopy, we're essentially doing the same model. We have a deposit account. We fill it up periodically when it gets low. We did spend all of our pilot money in the first 2 years of Kanopy, so we did have to find additional money to support the 3rd year. But we have rolled that into our budget now as an expectation that we'll continue to support Kanopy, kind of in the same way, because I don't want to do mediated Kanopy because that would be tough on my staff. So during the 3 years, I had some luxury to kind of see how people are actually using films as well, not just that they were using them. So a couple of kind of fun things I think we've got out of this are, we discovered there's a themed course every fall on horror films. This year's theme is eco-terrorism. Or sorry, not eco-terrorism, eco-thrillers. Sorry, 2 T words, not the same. We've had a couple faculty members request the entire, I'm not going to try the French word, the entire package of specific directors, most recently all the films by Peter Weir. And we are seeing use across discipline. There are things in the sciences, in health sciences, it's not just humanities, social sciences, and art that are using these films, it's across all subject areas. And so I do want to end with just some of the popular titles on our 3 different platforms. So I think my suspicion is pretty much anyone who has a Kanopy PDA has Race, Power of Illusion in their top 10. I kind of wanted to go to 10 on Swank, but I kept myself under control because number 7 was Crazy Rich Asians, very popular. It was a request by a faculty member, so it's not like we're trying to be Netflix. So I would say, kind of in conclusion, our pilots have been very, very popular, and we have no anticipation of ending them anytime soon. So if you have any questions, I think we can open it up to the audience. If there's no questions, that's okay too. There's a microphone there in the middle if you can get to it, or we can get someone to bring it over. Yeah. So one thing I didn't mention is mine is we actually do the duplication checking that Kanopy offers, so that helps us leverage our money a little bit further. But based on at least at Ohio State, based on the evidence we're hearing from our teaching faculty and other people who are using it outside of the libraries, they want it, they're going to keep wanting it, and they'd really like to have the library be the people supporting it, because we can actually facilitate some of the more niche kind of requests. So there has been a commitment to incorporate video in a way that hadn't happened in the past. So we're finding money. Did you all? There's a question back in the corner.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Kay Downing from Penn State University, and we also subscribe to the campus CPA, and we found that over the past year, the cost has just become unsustainable. It's just because, basically like your chart, our budget can't manage that kind of demand. So, and I've also noticed that a number of major universities, Harvard, Stanford, New York University, they've all cut back and really limited the way they're providing access to Kanopy. I'm wondering, are you thinking along those terms where you might want to limit the content to control costs? And if so, how would you do that?
So we actually have broken Kanopy's invoicing system a couple of times. And so when that has happened, it's part of the duplication process. So when that's happened, we've actually started getting the emails, like if we were a mediating site, and just the scope of, just in one day, because it just happened on Friday when I was traveling, of course, we had like 20 of these come in about 2 hours. And if we had that regularly, my staff could not manage that. And talking to the faculty, be like, well, why do you want this thing? So we don't actually have the staff to support any kind of mediation, but we have talked a little bit about taking a look at some of the collections. Are there collections we probably should own longer licenses for, save some money that way? Are there some specific films we want to investigate? Are there subject areas that we could probably do without because they're not really getting that much use, and just rely on professor requests?
Just to kind of answer both questions, for us, we did end up spending the initial $2,000 on Kanopy within a couple of months. So we did reinvest our money, but I think as the comment that you had said was made, the fact is we want to invest in things that people want, so it's very hard to say, oh, we're not going to put more money in. And yes, of course, that money is coming from somewhere. And initially, we did do a really small investment, but students get excited when they find out we have this, right? And they use it. Do they get as excited about some other things? So, of course, money is always going to be an issue, and you're always going to be trying to juggle it and try to figure out what is the most important. But also, as for us, we were in this project, again, we're much smaller, obviously, you could see the differences. For us, it was faculty driven. So faculty actually want this. They're using it in their classroom. So who are we to say, no, we can't support this, but we're gonna get some more books for you? Not to say that they don't want the books, but you got to pick and choose what you're going to end up investing your money in. And yes, it is, it's a hard decision. It's always been a hard decision, even before these media, streaming media systems have been around, So that's all I wanted to say about that. Go ahead. Yeah, well, I was at that vendor as well, talking about the same thing, so you,
Yeah, I know there is movement. There are some ALA committees kind of working in this area, but I'm not sure. It hasn't been widespread yet because I hadn't actually heard, but Kanopy actually has a new CEO. So this might be a great time to really have some new conversations with the new person there.
And you talk about budgets, we went from about 2,000 a month to about 10,000 a month. We are budget balance. We basically panic attack. We don't have that much money. So we actually contacted Kanopy for help. What they did is we went through and identified our top providers, okay? They helped us, they gave us usage, we looked at it. And so what we have done now is we have, and I don't want to say this like we locked it down, but we don't provide the access. So basically, we took our top providers, okay, the top five, these are the providers that we have noticed the most videos being coming from. We looked at the content, the criterion, the PBS. We looked at what we had with, like the AGON, Academic Video Online. We looked at other sources to see what the providers were in those areas. And so what we said is we said, Kathy, here we go. Here's some money. We're going to lock it down to our top five providers. And then if our users get something that they want to add for a class or a research project or whatever they want, as long as they identify themselves as one of our codes, they let us know, it comes to us, and then we just go in and add it as we do it. We have had very few coming through. Ones that we do come in, they'll be like, oh, well, I need this for my class. We go in, we get an email, I've got a staff person, we add it within, a few hours that afternoon, they've got it for the next morning, things like that. So by locking it down, our cost has gone down back to what we originally did. Our users are not noticing anything one way or the other, and the vendor actually worked and helped us through usage and helped us identify so we could focus on what we were trying to do. We're able to, as I say, we have not, we flipped because it was, our budget went in like a month. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But by the time we put all this together, our users are now going, this is great. And as I say, we're not getting any pushback, we're not getting anything, they're using it. We're able to identify the resources that are in other areas. It's a very simple process.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, I mean, Kanopy of the vendors is actually probably the easier ones to work with. I mean, all the streaming vendors are good, but Kanopy definitely listens and does look for ways to help you figure out some of this. We have went over time, so I mean, if you do have further questions, I'll be able to stay a little bit longer, or contact information if you have other questions.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.